Thunder Bay Police execute what they're calling a planned high-risk arrest at a Southside housing complex. Good evening and thank you for joining us. City Police have confirmed that one person was taken into custody today.
Members of the Emergency Task Unit and other officers took part in the operation. Police descended on Spence Court on Amelia Street around 2:30 this afternoon with rifles drawn. The operation was completed quickly and one person could be seen being placed into the back of a police vehicle. City Police continues to hold the scene but say there's no concern for public safety at this time. More information about the arrest is expected to be released by police officials tomorrow.
A Thunder Bay murder trial featured some shocking testimony on day 2 at the city courthouse. A witness for the Crown claimed that someone else admitted to the killing. 34-year-old Justin Coaster has pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder in the shooting death of 37-year-old Charlie Finlayson in July of 2022. The victim died from a single gunshot wound to the head. Yesterday, the court heard from a woman who was in a relationship with Finlayson. She testified that he left her home around 6 o'clock that morning to gather some belongings from a residence on McMillan Street. She later heard he had been shot, so she went to the home but didn't get any answers. She then picked up a man and took him to a bar where she claims the man confessed to the murder. The woman testified that she gave this information to city police. The trial has been put on hold until March 17th, at which time more Crown witnesses will be called.
A city delegation has returned from the annual Roma conference where they spoke to a number of Ford government ministers about key local priorities.
That included talks about possibly demolishing the former Lakehead Psychiatric Hospital and using the land for housing. Vasilios Bellows spoke to the delegation today and brings us more.
The City of Thunder Bay has a plan for the LPH property.
So our request is that building be demolished and that those lands be completely remediated.
Councillor Kristen Oliver chairs the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee and was part of a city delegation that has just returned from the annual Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference. One of the key talking points with provincial ministers, what to do with the Ontario-owned LPH property. The city has begun discussions with Ontario to demolish the building and possibly build townhouses or apartments.
We know that that building was built a long time ago. It does not meet the needs of what we have now in accessibility piece. There's, asbestos and all the gamut of things that building materials that were used in days gone by.
There's no timelines for a government decision on the land, but Mayor Ken Boshkov says the project is already attracting interest.
Our issue would never be finding someone who is interested in or who doesn't have the capacity. They all have the capacity to do this.
The delegation also advocated for policing supports, including around the need for a forensic pathology unit. Currently, a locum team comes to the city once a week out of the month.
When are we going to be looking at a permanent solution?
Councillor Casey Atraney is also a police board member and says advocacy for a forensic pathology unit is crucial, with the current method being costly.
Providing support to the service, because at this point they need to travel to Toronto with those post-mortem patients. And how are we going to support that financially? Because right now the taxpayer is doing that.
While the Roma Conference provides the delegation face-to-face time with provincial ministers, it doesn't often lead to immediate benefits for Thunder Bay. The delegates spoke more to how meetings in recent years have eventually led to important funding.
Some funding for the safe sobering sites and the addiction pieces. That is something that the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee has been hammering away at in 23 and 24. So we know that the government has heard us.
Addictions has received a lot of funding. That's a really important piece not to miss or look over. And with the growth piece, we're going to see some more announcements coming. So some of these pieces aren't from one meeting to the next and we get announcements. Some of them are 1.5, 2 years in advance.
Vasilios Bellows, TBT News.
Premier Doug Ford gave his strongest hint yet that he may call an early election because of the tariff threat by Donald Trump. Here's what he had to say when asked if the call could come next week.
Stay tuned.
Okay,
but we need a mandate from the people. We need a mandate to protect and possibly spend billions of dollars to protect people's jobs. Businesses.
Ford has been ramping up his language around a possible early election in recent weeks, despite the fact that he doesn't have to call an election until 2026. If he does call one next week, voters would likely head to the polls on February 27th.
We've got more now on Patty Hajdu's decision to support Mark Carney as the next leader of the federal Liberal Party. TBT News spoke with the local MP and cabinet minister today. She expressed confidence that the former Bank of Canada governor will bring a strong new direction to the party.
Really was quite impressed by his experience, his leadership, his vision for the country, and I would say his stability. That experience that he's had being the Bank of Canada governor, the governor of the Bank of England during two very difficult economic times for both countries, really gave me comfort in the quality of leadership that he represents.
Hajdu joins a growing list of current and former cabinet ministers who are backing Carney. When asked why she's supporting him over longtime cabinet colleague and former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, Hajdu did not respond directly. But she referenced Carney's ability to work across partisan lines and pointed to his time as governor of the Bank of England between 2013 and 2020.
Well, I would just say that the times are dramatically different. It calls for a different approach. One of the parts of the conversation that we had was the ability of Mr. Carney to be able to work across partisan lines. And you have to be able to have a sort of a big tent approach where ideas and solutions coming from a variety of different voices are welcome.
The Thunder Bay area's other Liberal MP, Marcus Pulowski, is expected to announce who he's supporting for the leadership tomorrow.
A major step has been completed when it comes to developing the Ring of Fire. 15 First Nations and the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada have agreed on terms of reference for a regional assessment.
It'll look at how future development in the remote area might affect the environment, society, and the economy. Jessica Clement has the details.
Representatives from 15 First Nations, including all 9 Matawa communities, have started work with the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada to evaluate the impacts of development in the Ring of Fire mining area. The assessment will focus on the region's environment, society, and economy.
The goal of this is to really understand the baseline data. What are the current conditions? What are the challenges that are facing communities? What's the sort of environmental realities that are up in that area? And then to understand, and for every community to come together in community-driven processes.
Ian Ketcherson, the agency's Vice President of Indigenous Relations, says the group will be meeting this week to plan out the work that needs to be done. He explains the terms of reference gave them a 30-month time frame to gather all the data and put it in a final report, which will be presented to First Nation leaders and the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
There's lots of work that's going to happen in the meantime. We're going to be working on databases and mapping to present information, and each of the communities will be working on their own sections of the reports, engaging with knowledge holders, elders, community members to get going on the research and study.
Ketcherson adds that a critical part of the process is to take the time to sit down and get to know the communities they're working with.
If you create that sort of strong relationship foundation for dialogue, there's kind of, you can do some pretty amazing things. And in a part of the country where the perspectives are so diverse, the implications for communities of future development are huge, and the potential for development in an area are so vast that I'm just really proud that we've been able to make it to this point, and looking forward to the work that's ahead of us.
Jessica Clement, TBT News.
The Anishinaabe Police Service has charged a 52-year-old man for allegedly assaulting one of its officers in Martin Falls yesterday afternoon. Knapp says officers responded to a disturbance call at a home when one of them was attacked. The officer wasn't seriously injured. The accused had a bail hearing today and remains in custody.
A 3-vehicle collision on Highway 102 caused traffic delays on the busy route this afternoon, but fortunately, no injuries. It happened around noon at the corner of Maple Ward Road. OPP say a pickup truck, a catering van, and a transport truck were all heading eastbound when the pickup slowed down to turn left. Police say the van attempted to go around the pickup, followed by the transport, but the transport collided with the van, which then struck the pickup truck. The driver of the transport, a 28-year-old man from British Columbia, was charged with following too closely. The 27-year-old Thunder Bay driver of the catering van was charged with making an unsafe move.
Officials with Thunder Bay Fire Rescue have announced details about a house fire that caused significant damage early Tuesday morning. Fire crews responded to the blaze on North Syndicate Avenue just after midnight after a neighbor reported seeing a red glow. Upon arrival, crews encountered a single-story home with smoke pouring out of the main floor and flames shooting out a window at the back of the structure. The fire was quickly brought under control with damage limited to the bedroom, bathroom, and hallway. Fire officials say no one was home at the time. The cause of the fire is under investigation.
The Lakehead Region Conservation Authority has received over $650,000 from Natural Resources Canada to help fund its Lakehead Coastal Resilience Management Plan. The funding is part of a broader $4.1 million initiative aimed at creating coastal resilience across Ontario's Great Lakes. The total budget of the plan in the area is $883,000, with the federal government covering 75% of it and the LRCA covering the rest. A major part of the projects includes assessing current and future risks on the Lakehead Superior shoreline, including looking at potential flooding, erosion, and climate change impacts. CAO Tammy Cook says the data will be used when the LRCA implements regulations for people who want to build in those areas.
This project is important because we want to have accurate information when we're directing future development. We want to make sure that future development's directed outside of natural hazards, and also will help us assess what current infrastructure is at risk with current flooding risks, for instance, with the current natural hazards that are on Lake Superior today.
The project is underway now and will be conducted up to and including 2027.
Well, turning to weather now, and Fiona, that polar vortex that seems like the whole country has been under for a little while seems to be a thing of the past. Is that correct?
Well, sort of.
The temperatures have warmed up anyway, that
The
much I know.
temperatures have warmed up for today. We're not completely out of the woods yet, though. And I mean, that really can't be too much of a surprise. That was the first cold weather we've probably had in about 3 years. But last night, some areas of the region still saw very cold temperatures. Here in Thunder Bay, it was actually relatively mild, as Ryan said. We had a low of -14, although wind chills were hovering around -24. And then we warmed up today to a very seasonal -11, wind chills of -16. We had that little bit of light dusting of snow overnight and into most of the morning. Around 1 o'clock, it seemed to taper off, and then we were left with mostly cloudy skies. Winds started off very light, just 6 kilometers per hour from the north-northwest, kicking up to about 35 km just in the last few hours. So it's been becoming a little bit more blustery just in the last little bit. See if we can get this to go. There we go. So at this hour, temperatures are not looking too bad. Fort Frances actually had a very mild night as well. Areas directly west of Thunder Bay saw temperatures not really move a whole lot today. Fort Frances had a low of -16 and a high of -15. Wind chills at this hour are sitting at around -25. So the temperatures haven't changed, but the wind chill has gotten significantly colder in this part of the region. Further north and to the east, temperatures overnight were still once again very cold, ranging from -27 to -31. At this hour, Red Lake has got some sunshine after a morning of snow, and they're currently dealing with wind chills around -26, so a little bit nippy there. In Greenstone and down into Sault Ste. Marie along the eastern shores of Lake Superior, still a fair amount of snow coming through. Temperatures were quite cool in the Sault. -25 was the low. They've warmed up to -11 and a wind chill of -16. Just a little bit cooler at this hour in Greenstone. So all in all, there is warmth moving across the region. However, tonight it's going to get very cold again. -25 and a wind chill of -33. There's about a 40% chance we might see a little bit of light flurries this evening. After that, it tapers off. So we're not out of the woods just yet. It looks like Mother Nature is going to give us another shot in the arm with those cold temperatures. But there is an end in sight, I promise.
Good.
And the weekend is still actually looking very good, which is good news for you and your training, for your running outside.
Yeah, that's very good.
Don't want
news.
to do a repeat of last weekend.
I don't want to be running in feels like minus 45.
Nope.
I can tell you that. So thanks a lot, Fiona. All right, well, there are now weekly meetings happening between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Canada's premiers, of course, about those looming tariffs and that threat from Donald Trump. There are indications now that the tariffs could be implemented on February 1st, but some reporting from the Wall Street Journal suggests that this threat is all about renegotiating trade agreements between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. We'll have the latest details right after the break.
Trump only understands strength. We need to show strength.
We would, unfortunately and reluctantly, have to retaliate against tariffs